Sunday routine is often the quietest day of my week. Weekends for me are quieter. I mean, it's clearly obvious from my age that I'm retired, and that means that I do all sorts of things during the week, but very often weekends are quiet. And Sunday, because I go to St Paul's Church, that kind of takes up a lot of the time, because I happen to live in Walthamstow. I won't explain how daft it is.
So we're not in
Walthamstow.
We're not in Walthamstow now. Yeah, we're in Bow. Yeah.
But I do travel over from Walthamstow to Bow and go to the church, and sometimes I might stay after and chat to people and talk to people and so on. So that's most of Sunday, and then when I come back, it's very quiet. But it's often been a day when I've gone out and done things, because I'm a widow now. My husband died, gosh, it must be 5 years ago now, just 2 days before lockdown. He died.
Sorry to hear that.
It was bad, yeah. It wasn't unexpected death. I mean, it wasn't a sudden death, and it wasn't a death from COVID. But it meant that it was really weird. The fact that I just about managed to get a death certificate for him, and then we were into lockdown, and I was into grief and bereavement, and it was not a nice time at all. So he and I used to go about, we might even be on holiday or something like that on a Sunday.
5 years on, the grief and the bereavement, would you say they're still present, or are they a different kind of grief and bereavement with time?
Both. It is still present, and I'm sure if you've ever talked to any other people who've lost somebody, you don't, in inverted commas, get over it. But it's funny, I had a bereavement therapist who was noble, because he used to bike over to me all through COVID and lockdown and so on, and many people were just doing it by Zoom and all the rest of it. But he was great. And I remember him vividly saying, Jane, at the moment, if you think of the metaphor of a stream and an enormous great stone or block in the stream, that is like your bereavement. But believe me, eventually it will lessen. The stream will flow more easily past the enormous great block, and you will start to recover. And although he was brilliant, he's not right.
That's the punchline.
It is different, obviously, because you can't feel exactly the same things 5 years after. But it is horrible. It is horrible.
You said you were going to St Paul's, a church.
Yes.
Has your faith, or has the community of the church, been part of the life that has kept you stable?
Yes.
And that's kept you on an even keel?
Yes, definitely.
Was it so beforehand, or has it become more significant?
No. I had a strong faith when I was in my, I think, late teens, probably. I remember going to church just as regularly as I do now then. And I can't remember why I stopped. It's probably, you stop all sorts of things in your late teens. Life just takes over, and then you go off to university and you do this, that and the other, and you get married and so on. And I've been married twice, and neither of my husbands had a faith. So I just but then during bereavement, I met somebody who introduced me to this church, and I, if you like, refound the faith. I'm not impressively religious, but they are a very...
That's a nice phrase, impressive. That's very.
But they are a very welcoming, low-key sort of church. When I was much younger, I went to high church, and I enjoyed that greatly because I liked all the ceremony of it and so on. But when you actually need support and love from other people, really, and something to keep you going, then high church is I think pushes you away almost, rather than welcomes you in.
How would you, for those who are unfamiliar with high church, low church, how would you define both of those things? for people who have never been to church that don't understand
Well, I
the
suppose
difference?
high church is just traditional and full of a lot more ritual and full of a lot more kind of accepted ways of doing things and saying things, and doesn't allow. It's very beautiful, and it can be very moving, high church, but it's not very inclusive somehow.
So it's kind of all about
priest up there.
It's all about the kind of the ceremony,
Yeah,
right?
which is sometimes sustaining, but not really human.
And
Low church.
And you describe St Paul's as a completely different kind of.
Yeah, well, St Paul's is Church of England, which people may or may not understand, but it's not evangelistic, because like some people are, evangelistic churches make my hackles rise slightly.
Right.
When people are
Because they're
kind
trying to
of
persuade you all the
leaping
time.
around, trying to persuade you to do things and say things and be things that are just not natural.
It's a difficult. If you look from the church's point of view, it's a difficult. Any church or any religion, it's a difficult path to steer, to try and be true to the values that you want in your faith, but also to allow people to be what they want, because most churches or most religions can't allow that kind of flexibility.
Yeah.
But you're talking about quite a lot of flexibility.
It does, yeah. I mean, I sometimes lead the Bible class, which is something I would never have thought myself like.
That's interesting.
To do. And I often read in church, read the lesson in church and so on.
So you're really getting involved. You're
yeah.
both feet in.
I'm a kind of person that gets involved. I mean, after I've been involved very heavily with University of the Third Age. I don't know if you know what that is.
Which is a university for older people.
Yeah, that's right. It's an older. It's sort of international thing, but there are 1,000 branches in the UK, and Peggy Archer on the Archers was very much a pusher of it. But my husband started one in Waltham Forest 30 years ago, and so I got involved that way. And then when he died, or actually when I retired, I got more and more involved. So that was very pervasive. So I do get involved with things, and I'm on the Waltham Forest Music Society Committee. I'm on my doctor's, GP's, patients group. I'm deputy chair of that. So I'm just somebody that tends to, if I become interested in something, I get involved, basically.
Going back to the thing about your faith, you said you had it and then it kind of took a back seat, then came back again. It's interesting that there was a large period of your life where it wasn't so
Very
important. Do you reckon that's all right? I mean, some people might think you either have faith or you don't, and it's not possible to waver between the two.
Yeah.
But for you, it wasn't a problem to just like leave it by the wayside for a while.
It wasn't a problem. I think the points you make, or that you surmise other people would make, are perfectly valid. And I sometimes think, am I just resting in this faith? Do I just want to believe and want to have this lifestyle rather than actually truly believe? But I think you can just tie yourself in knots trying to work that out. And I think you just have to have faith, basically, and just think, look, this is right for me. I may not be a very good Christian, in inverted commas, but I feel like I am one, and it helps me and it supports me, and I love the people that I meet doing it. So why not just get on and be a Christian and give as much as you can to the church, and worry and let him up there worry whether you turn out to be a real Christian that goes to heaven or not.
So with the bereavement, with the grief, with being a widow, is being busy and getting involved with stuff part of the coping also?
Absolutely. And I get, when I'm not involved with stuff and things aren't happening, I go down, and I've observed that in myself. I need to be busy to distract myself, and that's what I do a lot of the time. And maybe I'm sort of avoiding something by doing that, but so often I feel you can turn on a sixpence in these situations. You can be almost suicidally depressed, and I have been suicidally depressed at the times over the 5 years. And then if you just keep going, if you keep going out, if you keep meeting people, talking to people, sometimes you will just have an interaction or a conversation or an experience which will just turn you on a sixpence, and you will be really uplifted and happy afterwards, and joyful, when before you were almost suicidal. So being busy and diverting myself and getting involved with things is a way of making that happen. And sitting alone at home, which I do sometimes have to do, especially when there are tube strikes or whatever, is not good. Well, it's not good for me. Maybe it's good for other people, but it's bad for me.
So that momentum, I mean, you say it's always been part of you anyway.
Yes, it has.
Before you were widowed,
things,
you were always a doer.
Yep.
But putting yourself in, one of the problems about when you feel down is sometimes you can't make yourself go into
things.
You can't make yourself go into those situations where things happen.
You can't. I have a neighbour who's also bereaved, and I don't see a huge amount of her, but we went out to a prom together recently, and she said that she has days, and she seems, people don't fake depression, they fake being all right.
That's a very good point. That's a very good. Yeah, I haven't thought about that before. That's true. Yeah.
And she said that she has some days where she literally can't get out of bed. And that amazed me, because she seems, to my eyes, to be as busy and fulfilled as I am.
So
but
she's
clearly not.
So she seems buoyant.
She seems buoyant.
But she's actually paddling desperately under the water,
yeah.
like a swan.
But I know now that she has days where she literally can't get out of bed. I haven't actually got that I can't get out of bed, but I have got that I've sat in front of a sofa or something and just watched totally stupid TV and I can't do anything. But I do still somehow manage to whip myself into doing something, even if I don't want to do it.
Does knowing the really bad downs, does knowing that help you not go there again? If you feel it might be slipping towards that, do you know exactly how to turn the ship around, change course, or do you not have control over it? Do you know that you still can go back there?
I know I can still go back there.
Well, that's depressing. I say that kind of flippantly, but that's kind of like difficult.
Yeah, it is. And I think, and of course there are, when you get to my age, it's there are other things which I often wonder, actually, if I'd been bereaved when I was 35 or something, I'm sure I would be just as desperately unhappy and miserable as I was then, but there would, at the back of my mind, be the thought, there's still more to come. And when you age, there is not more to come, and that is fundamentally depressing.
So age, the fact that there's more yesterdays than tomorrows,
yep,
is very much part of the framework that you're talking about.
Yeah.
That knowledge.
Yeah. You lose health, of course, too. I try not to. It's really funny when I talk to other elderly people in U3A, because I'd run a couple of groups. I have a group.
University of the Third Age.
University of the Third Age. Yeah, I run a couple of groups as well, and they come to my home and we have a jolly time. And I don't teach, I facilitate, and.
That sounds great. That sounds great to have a university in your own front room.
Well, the groups in U3A do anything. Some of them, at one end of the scale, they might be learning Latin. At the other end of the scale, they're playing Scrabble. It's really being together and exercising their mind together is the crucial thing. And I just find that. So I know that. So what I'm trying to do, really, I suppose, is lay on things where I might have that turn on a sixpence experience, even though I really, really think, oh, bloody hell. All my classics group are coming around on Monday. There's preparation to do.
Have I got enough tea bags?
I really don't want to do this, but I know from experience that probably I will be uplifted by it. So just get on with it, Jane.
And there's a bravery to that. You're steeling yourself.
Yeah, I do find myself steeling myself a lot. And I think, to be really morbid, if by any chance I get to the stage where I'm actively thinking, what is the point? I don't want to go on anymore. That will take courage as well. And I'm aware of that, because that's just as frightening. Ending your life is just as frightening as carrying on with it.
I always remember one of my very ancient and wise grannies saying many, many years ago, when she was on the way out, saying, I don't want to die because I love living. Even at her very, very advanced age, she knew that she was dying. But she's like, we are programmed to live as organisms. It's very hard for us to think otherwise, because that's just how we are as a living being.
Yeah.
But yeah, that there was that debate in Parliament recently about right to die and all dignity.
I was up in Parliament demonstrating for that. And
oh right, so you got involved in that too?
Oh yeah. I belong to two things actually. I belong to something called Dignity in Dying, who were organising a lot of the protests and come to the Houses of Parliament and meet your MP and talk to them and so on. And then I also, since at least over 10 years, I've belonged to something called Exit International, and you know what that is.
No.
Well, it
sounds like an export company.
Well, it's just another international society. It started off in Australia, and it has workshops in the UK, in Australia, in America, and so on. And it's about the same thing. It's about if I choose to end my life, that's my decision. And it has, I suppose you could say, like-minded people getting together and talking about how they might do it or whether it's a good idea and so on. Anyway, it's run by a chap called Philip Nitschke, who is called by the press Dr. Death.
Right.
But
it's interesting though, engaging with that whole subject, even just in a conversational way, must be. It just must be. Well, I mean, if you voluntarily engage in it, it must be a very interesting subject to. I mean, I've never really put much thought into it myself. No. We all have to at some point, if we have, if we know it's coming. But our culture kind of shies away from it. How easy? I mean, do you sometimes try opening the conversation with friends who then immediately close the conversation down and are like, "I'm not," because a lot of people don't want to.
I don't shy away from admitting it if conversations vaguely go in that. If they go in that direction, I don't keep it secret that I'm in favour of assisted death, and that I meet other people sometimes who are also in favour. But I don't go out of my way to announce it to people and say, oh, by the way, I'm a member of Exit International.
Yeah, you're not going to be wearing the T-shirt and going, you should do this, you should think about this.
Absolutely not. That would be anathema to me to do that, to try and evangelise death.
We're sitting on a park bench on a Sunday morning. Lots of people, as the listeners will be able to hear, lots of people are running past. They're young, they're fit, they're at the other end of their lives in a way, because they're all young enough to run and keep fit and think that's important. Do you sometimes, if you're sitting in a place like this, watching young people go past, being youthful, do you sometimes think, I'd love to give you some advice as an older person of what I've enjoyed from life? Or do you think you'll work it out as you go?
I tend to think the latter. You'll work it out. I don't have a huge amount of contact. I'm not a mother. I'm a stepmother because my second husband had 4 boys, but I didn't bring them up and so on. And I have a very much cherished, I suppose my closest young person is my nephew, Stefano. And he keeps in touch with me, he comes to see with me, and he adored John, and he seems to adore me. And if he asked me for advice, I would wholeheartedly give it, but I do not say. I just think I would have not liked it when I was 21, some older person saying, I can tell you things that are important, listen to me. I'd have said, oh, God, get lost.
Or you would have listened politely and then
I'd
forgotten
have listened politely, yeah. Because everybody is so different. You can't give advice in a kind of general way like that.
What about the idea of your identity, where you are now in your life, your identity of how the rest of the world sees you, as well as how you see the rest of the world?
That's part of my problem, I think, because that's another thing that ebbs away as you get older. Because
your identity in general
your
ebbs away.
identity in general ebbs away. Yeah.
What does that explain? How that feels, or what that means?
Well, it means
how it happens.
Unattractively, it means that sometimes you think, I'm just not very important anymore. And when you've had a fairly big career, and I don't know, and I suppose, I recently resigned in June. After 12 years, I resigned from the top notch, if you like, from U3A. I was secretary and I ran their website. And I don't miss it. As I say, I'm still involved with them, but I don't miss it. And I remember they gave me a big send-off, and they gave me flowers and vouchers and goodness knows what, and lifelong membership of the U3A. And there were people saying, God, Jane, you're a legend, you know that? And I was thinking, oh. And that's lovely, and I accept the compliment gracefully, but I know that in here, I hate losing the status of being, associate director of X or whatever. I really, and it's not attractive, that.
Are you talking about being basically useful?
Yes, and I know I am, I know I am quite useful, and I know I do more than a lot of people. But I just, being all this sense of loss around you, loss of health, loss of opportunity, loss of status, loss of whatever, it makes you feel, sometimes it makes you feel anger, and it makes you feel despair sometimes, and it makes you feel fear.
Those are all very strong emotions: anger, despair and fear. And for some reason, maybe through culture, we assume that older people are sanguine about their status, because we assume that there's a wisdom that comes with age. We assume that there's an acceptance. We assume that essentially that people accept their place as an older person. But
I do that.
But what is that place? Because you're basically saying, why the hell should I accept all these things?
Well, part of me thinks it's healthy to cling on to that, because that's what we were talking about, driving yourself to do things, distractions, helping, being involved and so on. So I feel in a way that if that encouraging that sort of why shouldn't I be important attitude is important. But there is another part of me which says, Jane, look, just relax. You are older. You have had a good life. You have a good life now in lots of ways that other people don't. Just relax into it. And there are people that think a lot of you, genuinely really believe it. There are some people that think quite a lot of you. Just relax into it.
Maybe, and this is a very simplistic thing, but think about how we talk to children and say, oh, that's amazing, what a brilliant drawing, oh, you're so good. Maybe we just need to do that a bit more with our older relations and friends, and say you're amazing, and actually give you a bit of the love.
That's what Stefano does to me. So he sometimes said, God, Jane, you're the most intelligent woman I know, when I was moaning about something or other and how I felt, and so maybe you're right. Maybe a bit of, gentle parenting towards the elderly. Reverse gentle parenting.
What about when you got involved with, I'm just thinking about the idea of being a kind of like a rebel, being energised by a cause as an older person. Was that whole thing when you went to Parliament to demonstrate, was that energising to feel that your cohort, people your age, still had something to say, still had a fight to fight? Was that kind of fun to be part of that?
Yeah. Yes, it is. It is fun to be part of that, and it is justifying. It is energising. Yeah.
Could there be another cause you could get hold of?
I don't know. I do sometimes. I'm
you
giving
just
you
gave
the
a kind of
impression that I'm firing on all cylinders and incredibly involved in everything, and I'm not. I sometimes do. And I am conscious. I mean, that's part of the reason that I stopped being secretary and running the website as well as running my classes and so on. Because I was, because I'm on the Music Society committee because I'm chairing my doctors group and so on. And I did definitely think, Jane, you're getting tired. Just let go of some of these things, And it's been good because I really, truly, honestly have not missed being secretary or running the website.
Is there in some ways a wider debate to be had about what role do we give older people in our society rather than just assuming that they're working it out for themselves? And in a way, the University of the Third Age is part of
that,
the answer to that, which is people wanting to get involved and setting. So just to explain the setup of the University of the Third Age, the sort of the broad general concept.
Well, it's University of the Third Age, as I say, it started, funnily enough, in France. Rather typically the French starting something rather intellectual.
With their intellectual pretensions.
Absolutely. It started, I think it's down in Montpellier or something, and they were affiliated to a university. But what it is now is there is a central body, organ, University of the Third Age in the UK, and they do things like run the software for us all to run our website, so on and so on. But nevertheless, the 1,000 or so U3As that are throughout the UK are independent, and they have their own constitutions, and they decide themselves what they're going to do in the light of their constitution. So the central U3A is to help and to direct to some extent and so on. And
it's almost like a technocratic kind of like,
that's right.
Here's the basis.
Yeah.
Here are the
Go
tools.
away and do it in your area. Yeah.
And the people who get involved are all, do you have to be over the age of a certain thing?
You have to be over the age of 50, normally, and no longer in full-time employment.
Right.
That's all.
Right. And then you come to the University of the Third Age and you go, right, I want to keep busy, I have an active mind. What do you offer? And it sounds like you offer anything.
Well, yes. I mean, we're quite a small one in Waltham Forest. I think there's only it's less than 400 members. The larger ones, like U3A in London, might have 1,000. So it's really like running something major. And normally there is a pattern whereby you have monthly meetings, at which there's usually some sort of talk, lecture, whatever. And people sometimes may or may not, go to that. And then you have the groups, which are the smaller groups of people doing a particular thing, like the learning Latin or playing Scrabble. Some people who join U3A do both. I do both. Quite a lot of people do both. But some people join just to go to the monthly talks and meet other people and listen to the talk. Some people are only interested in the groups, because it's only really in the groups that you would make close friends, I think, because the groups can be are never bigger than about a dozen people, I should think.
And once you're in it, I'm assuming there's a sort of a certain voluntary element to it. I mean, people can come and go as they please. There's no kind of set fees or term time or exam. So you're not aiming for things. You're essentially participating.
In some ways, I mean, sometimes there's a debate about whether we won't change the name, obviously, but whether the name University of the Third Age is a handicap, and whether people think, oh, blimey, university, do you do qualifications? Do you do exams? Will I have to do this tests and all that? And we don't, But it's been University of the Third Age for, scores and scores and scores of years, so it's not going to change.
And if I could make a sort of odd comparison between University of the Third Age and going to church and the community you get there, do they fulfil for you very different things, or is there a crossover in the Venn diagram between what both give you as part of the structure of your life?
Well, they obviously both are important in the structure of my life, but whether they do the same job or not, I'm less sure, because I mean, there is something more spiritual and reflective and aspiring almost about the church, and U3A is not spiritual or reflective, really. I suppose you could make it. You could have a religious group if you wanted, but they both sustain me, but it is different.
So talking about the sustaining, we're sitting on the bench. You're about to go to church,
Yep.
to St Paul's. What are you looking forward to? What are you expecting from church today?
I'm expecting. We have a halfway through the service. One of the things that this church does, and a lot of churches do, but not all, is have something called the peace, where you've been in the church for a while and you've sung a hymn and you've listened to the priest say this, that, and the other, and you've prayed together. But then you have the peace where everybody gets up, stands up, walks around the church, says things like "peace be with you," or just shakes the hand, or gives people a hug or a kiss and something, and that's quite a important and healing thing to do that. And I think that's one of the reasons I stick with the church, because that's what will be happening. Halfway through the service, we will get up and we will all go and give each other a hug and exchange the peace, if you like, and just support each other, you know. And I think that's what I really look forward to. And of course, there's the communion, which is central, really, to take communion. But it's quite easy to be slightly matter of fact about it. It's sometimes not as meaningful as standing around and offering people peace and giving them a hug and so on.
And the peace, where you walk around, you
Yep.
shake hands, give people a hug, you greet people, is human contact, it's support, it's community.
And you're doing it in the name of your faith. You all have the same faith. Some of you may be really, really good at it, and some people may not be, you know, but you are all doing it honestly in the faith, in the knowledge that you all share a faith of some kind in God and Jesus Christ and the Holy Spirit. And that's quite powerful, because it's not the same as walking around and seeing your friend in the street and giving them a hug.
It's a different
Different sort
kind
of
of
feeling.
human connection.
Yeah, it is. Well, it's probably both of them. But it has an extra dimension, put it like that.
Just trying to think the difference between, if you met a group of your friends, old friends, and you were looking forward to seeing them, that's a different thing to the peace that you're talking about.
At the church, yes, it is.
Because the peace is with strangers, and it's giving support openly to
Yeah,
people you
some
don't
of them
know.
are strangers. I mean, obviously you see some of them every Sunday, but some of them are strangers, and you do make an effort, I think, particularly to go and welcome strangers, whereas you wouldn't in private life. You'd probably look across the room at the party and think, I don't know you, but I won't bother to go and talk to you.
Is the peace about giving more than receiving? When you go through the process of walking around the church, is the feeling you get
Yeah.
afterwards, the fact that you're looking forward to, is it because of what you've given, or is it because of what you've received in terms of the peace?
It's partly because I do both, but it's more about giving. Because sometimes we were talking about how you just sometimes are feeling low and you might not feel like getting out of bed or whatever. And that can happen in the peace as well. You think, oh, shall I just sit in my pew and not get up? But you don't, because you want to get up and greet people and offer them the peace of belief in Christ and so on. It's important somehow. It's really important.